Today's guest is Sam Laliberte, who is a digital nomad, serial entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and freedom speaker who helps unlock people's potential to design their own liberated lifestyle, which defines as freedom over your location, schedule, and your finances. And over the last 5 years, she's built a multi six-figure freelance business while working with from dozens of countries around the world for less than 30 hours per week. So, Sam, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here and I'm usually the one interviewing other people, so it's nice to be interviewed and being on the hot seat.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have coaches on here like all the time, and I would say like, yeah, it's always funner on like the flip end of like the equation. So yeah,
Ask me
you're
again
not
at the
the
end. We'll see if this was fun.
Yeah, that's true. You will be the one to gauge how good or not good this was by the end of it. So we're about to find out. But yeah, it's great to have you here. So I'd love for you to just kind of give us some context on you beyond just that intro and all of the cool things that you are about.
hmm Intro to me. I would say, yeah, freedom, of course, came up in a lot of my bio that you just shared so wonderfully. Thank you for that. And that's been consistent throughout my whole life. I grew up with parents who were entrepreneurs and grandparents who were entrepreneurs who never had the traditional 9 to 5 confined lifestyle, which for me just never fit. And I spent the first part of my career really being in work situations that just, I didn't feel like I could be myself or be authentic or feel free in the way that I wanted to. And so it's been a very windy journey to get to where I am today. And I never knew how I was going to get to where I am today. And I definitely don't know how I'm going to get to the next place I want to go. But I always just had this strong knowing of like, I wanted to have more freedom in my life. And entrepreneurship is, of course, such an amazing way to get that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think so many people get into entrepreneurship wanting the opposite of where they feel trapped, which is, some version of like a job.
hmm
And then they get into entrepreneurship and then recognize that, okay, well, with the freedom also comes this responsibility. And then that becomes its own trap. And I think what I hear from your story is like you found the balance in that, like you found the authentic expression of that for you as you define it, as you want to live it, which I think is actually super cool. And I love when people come on here that actually walk their talk. So if you want to add anything to that, floor is yours for that.
Yeah, I think bang on. Just because you work for yourself doesn't mean you're suddenly going to have all this freedom and flexibility. You really want to think through, okay, well, if this is the type of business I'm going to run, what is the lifestyle of somebody who runs that business? And of course, you can just do a bunch of outsourcing and hiring and solve for that. Or you can do what Warren, what I've done, which is really say yes to opportunities, create offers that hit those 3 boxes for me, which is freedom over my location. I want to be able to run this business from anywhere, freedom over my schedule. I want to be able to design my days based on time zones I'm in, weather conditioning I'm in, or just any fun opportunity that might come up. And then freedom over my finances. I really want to be able to invest in my business, say yes to the things I want to say yes to. Doesn't mean I buy everything, but I can afford myself whatever I want within the reasonable limits I give myself.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
hmm
Love the fact that you are, living it in your version of it right now. So I think that's actually a perfect segue to go into like what essentially brings you here. Like, what are the top problems or challenges that you are facing right now?
In terms of where I want to go next.
It could be in terms of where you want to go next. It could be in terms of how you're showing up as the leader, as the entrepreneur in moving yourself next. Like however you want to take the question, I'll go with however you answer it.
Yeah, I think it's a blessing and a curse of ambition. If so many people compliment me and are like, wow, it's so amazing what you've built and this great lifestyle. And they see me traveling the world with my husband and working from anywhere and, didn't have to start my day till 10 a.m. today and slept 9 hours. And it is so great. And for so long, this is what I wanted. Yet, even though I'm here, it's like I want more and I am unsettled by it. And I'm always pushing for the next thing. And I get better. I definitely celebrate my wins and find ways to enjoy it. But there's always an unsettledness in me of I need to be working towards the next thing. I need to be getting towards the next thing. And theory one is that's just my human condition and my brain of never being fully satisfied. Or what I'm hoping is true is I haven't fully lived out my purpose yet, which is that these last 6 years or so that I've been doing the freedom lifestyle and understanding how you can have flexible work and business, empower you to create your dream lifestyle. How do I take all of that and instead of just gaining myself and having this beautiful lifestyle, how do I really help other people achieve this? And so that's the dream, is to be, full-time motivational speaker, someone helping people do this, helping empower and liberate people. And I'm not doing that yet. And so I'm hoping once I'm doing that, just relax, everything's great. I've quote unquote made it and I can rest on my laurels. Probably not going to happen, but we're going to try to get there.
Perfect. So when it comes to the speaking and wanting to express yourself in that way, why do you feel like that's hard for you to do? Because it's like when I hear your story, even when I read your bio or just the little bit of conversation we've had going into this, it's like uh all of the credibility to like do that as far as from the outside looking in. So what comes up for you with that question?
Well, I think there's two things. It's one, I want to get paid to do it, right? So I want that to also check off the third box for me of that financial freedom. So money is important in this capitalist society that we live in. And so really understanding the business side of it and pitching myself to get paid what I think I'm worth to give that talk. I think, well, I know there's definitely limitations there. And then you could say, well, couldn't you just be doing that for free? Like, you have the message, couldn't you be sharing that? Which I have done on my podcast, but I think it's very easy to get tripped up in vanity metrics and to be tripped up in like, well, it's only this many hundred or this many thousand people listening. Like, is it even worth it? And people love to ask that, well, how many downloads do you have? How many subscribers do you have? It's like, I don't know if you can relate to that, but I'm constantly, my value is being measured on that. And so that can trip me up and prevent me from doing anything at all.
Okay. So on the one hand, you have, okay, I want to get paid for speaking. And I think there's like a subtext there of I want to get paid what I'm worth to do the speaking. And then there's a subtext of, well, I guess, am I good enough to get paid to speak because my vanity metrics aren't A, B, or C? So,
Yeah.
A, before I go on, like, does that resonate as far as like kind of where you're at with your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I think so. And also, if it was truly my purpose, could I just be doing it for free and doing it more and producing more podcast episodes and showing on social media more? And there's the trip up of like, well, is it worth my time if enough people aren't listening?
Okay. So would it be safe to say that's kind of like a third consideration now of, do I continue to share my message if it doesn't have a financial or, practical backing behind it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have these like interplay of different things that are vying for your attention in some way. And there's like a push and pull between all of them. So given that, which one do you think is most relevant?
Most relevant, I would say, is can I get paid what I want to get paid to do this?
Okay.
And yeah,
Have you tried?
I've invested in learning how to do it. I'm I've sent some emails and it went okay. And so I think whenever you put yourself out there, I even really cautious people of like, do it at scale, because sometimes it's a numbers game at the beginning. But I did one round of it, didn't get like a ton of interest in terms of the target audience I was targeting. kind of created some stories around that. And now it's been a long period of time of me not actually going in for the sale again because I kind of lost some confidence that I had built getting me to this point.
Okay. So then just for the sake of like that specific clarity, you haven't actually gotten a no or a yes. All you've gotten was crickets.
Crickets mostly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you making the crickets mean?
Not interested, not unique enough, not my message isn't isn't resonating in enough to get someone's attention.
Okay. And are any of those actually true?
I guess I wouldn't know unless the person said your message isn't good enough to get my attention. And so instead I just don't get an email reply and then I just assume okay my message isn't good enough to get someone's attention.
Correct. So who's actually saying that right now?
Me.
Okay. And is that useful for you?
It's not useful for me. No.
Okay. So
Mhm.
this isn't clearly anything earth-shatteringly new as far as like awareness that you're doing this.
Mhm.
So why do you think then it's so hard to overcome it?
Because at some point, so like at some point, like let's say, okay, I sent even more emails and did even more outreach, and it was conclusive that your message isn't good enough or strong enough or not resonating, then it would be a clear failure or a clear your dream that you wanted is not going to happen. And I think fully going for something that you could fail at is really scary. And yeah, I think I'm avoiding that because it's so lovely to have this dream and have this North Star and I'm so excited by it, but I'm also so scared of it not coming true. So then to like fully give it my all is scary because then if I fully give it my all, then I can't, it's just it didn't work, you know?
Right. So by never really trying, I can never really fail.
Yeah,
Okay. Got it. And does that show up anywhere else in your life?
not really. I mean, I guess I could be even more strict with sugar and desserts and those type of things, but I'm pretty strict and I'm pretty healthy, but I mean, there's always, you could work out more, eat even healthier, that kind of thing. But no, I push myself quite a bit.
Okay. So basically, this is the one area where what you normally do kind of falls flat.
It seems like it, yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So if you dive a bit deeper into that, if you did fail at your dream, then fill in the blank.
I don't even know. I don't even let myself go there because then it's like, what? I don't know. You tell me.
I mean, I can't do the answering for you, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's what's relevant is what's relevant to you.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, what does it mean to truly fail at your dream?
Failing at life,
Okay.
I guess. Yeah.
So basically, if I don't speak and get paid to speak, I've failed at life.
Yeah. From like a purpose standpoint. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do you
I
mean by
still
that?
think in terms of having my life mean something. And for me, meaning something has always been connected to impact and has always been connected to making the world better. And I guess doing it in a way that's more than just potentially raising great kids, which there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. But for me, I've always just wanted to do something more than just within my family, I guess, is how I would just explain it. So it's like, yes, I could just now put everything into my relationships, people around me, and like have this great lifestyle and be this great person. But I would have a longing for more. And I do want to do more and create a bigger impact in a different way.
Okay.
Hmm.
And if you didn't get a speaking job, that paid what you wanted it to pay. How is that failing at that purpose?
Because I don't see another way where I can combine what I feel are my natural gifts and things that I most enjoy doing with making the world a better place. Like I've spent a lot of time even coming to clarity on that being the outlet and that being the medium and that being what I want to do. And there was a whole journey of acknowledging that it's okay to say you want that and that that is a talent and that no, you're not just saying you want this particular career that everybody wants. This is valid. Like there was just such a journey to even claiming that I want to be a motivational speaker without fear of judgment or anything like that. And I'm so proud to have claimed that, that if it doesn't come true, then I guess, yeah, fill in the blanks. I don't know.
So would we safe to say that a lot of your identity right now is tied into this particular dream?
Yeah, I think purpose though, more than identity,
Okay.
because it's like kind of conflicting in a sense of my whole message is around like your work shouldn't be your identity. And so maybe there's some aha moment there, but like I know it's not my identity, or else I would be putting way more time into it. And just woke up, just started my day at 10. Like I'm not grinding out on this. Like I have other aspects of my identity. So I don't know if identity is the right word, but maybe, I don't know. What do you think?
So the reason why I asked that question, right? Because it's like it's the finality of how your subconscious treats this. Like there's just like, if I don't get a speaking gig, I have not just failed at getting a speaking gig, I have failed at life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that is the part. Like if I fail at speaking, then I fail at life. So from
Mm-hmm.
purpose, like I think this is again it was verbatim, but it's close, right? So from purpose standpoint, if I fail at speaking, then I fail at life.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a part of you that associates this dream with like the death of who I actually am.
Yeah.
So of course, why would you like be motivated to go and do the things you need to do to get a speaking gig, which is, you could argue just another extension of your current business. You've invested in doing it. You're taking active steps because you want this. But then there's a deeper part of you that's like, no, 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 this is like life. Like me doing this is huge. This is exactly who I am. So
Mm-hmm.
what comes up for you with that reflection?
Well, I think you're right. First of all, nothing really comes up other than, yeah, you're
Okay.
right.
So what is the part that resonates with you as being right?
That it's it's not that I don't know how to motivate myself and have a goal and achieve a goal. I've been doing that in all areas of my life regularly. Like self motivation is not my problem. Discipline is not my challenge. Getting up and getting shit done is not my challenge. I've done the courses, I've done the programs, I've done the membership, I've read the books. Like the strategy is not the problem. And so it's like you've you've done this in so many other ways before, but for some reason because of the meaning I associate with this, it's I've had such different speed towards it because
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting so caught up in how much this means to me. But when you rationally look at it, I'm not a first time entrepreneur. I'm not the first time going after a goal. Like I'm not in high school anymore wanting to be the president of a club. It's you're in your 30s. You've done a few things, like you've been here before, but for some reason it's not working in my advantage like it would if I said to you, I have this idea for this online course. I know it. And within 2 weeks, it would be up. And, ideally, I'd make some money from it, but it would be up. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if we just roll with that, what's the difference between the course, which also gets you money, which is also aligned with your purpose and your message of freedom,
Mhm.
versus the talk, which essentially on a value basis is the exact same thing?
Well, the course wouldn't be on freedom. The course would be on like much more of a, I would consider it a hard skill, like podcasting. And I think that's a little bit of it too. This lifestyle design and living a life that's authentic to you and making decisions for yourself. It's sometimes it feels too soft, and sometimes I worry that that isn't something that people would pay for, versus when I'm teaching people how to launch a podcast or grow their podcast or monetize their podcast or any of these things that I don't know, maybe I have association with them that are just like harder, more quote unquote valuable skills. I have no problem being like, this is the price for that.
Okay.
And
So if you're seen
mhm.
as an expert at teaching hard skills, then it's okay to step into that and get paid to do that. But as soon as you begin to speak about essentially the vulnerability that comes from you sharing what you're actually passionate about, that's where it gets, I don't know if I get paid for this. Do people actually consider this worthy, etc.?
Yeah, like I guess I'm relying a lot on my own experience with this stuff. And is my own experience enough? I think that you often, like, people are like, well, you have to write a book, or you have to do this research, or you have to get this degree. And there's a lot of that where it's like, what is your credibility on the topic? And in this case, the credibility is my own journey. And I've taken a research and as much of a scientific approach to it as possible so that my message lands with the people who maybe will only see me as credible if I do that.
But
But
your own experience is not enough to
mhm,
justify that.
mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
So why not?
I guess because that's what I've heard people say
Okay.
in
So
my
then why
life.
is your own authority not enough to justify that anyway?
Because people get in your head of maybe they are right. And then you do see these big names of people who maybe you look up to and you see a track record that looks different than yours. And so then you are like, okay, well, do I need to do this, this, and this? Is that the only reason they're taken seriously? And I know I'm going to say something that's going to sound like truth, but maybe it isn't truth, which is like there's some people who won't respect somebody unless they have certain credentials.
Okay. So now turn that statement around and turn everywhere you say you or people into I.
Like I don't respect people unless they have certain credentials.
Correct. How does that land for you?
Incorrect.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yet it seems to be correct when speaking about your stuff.
Hmm. Like
Okay.
I don't feel that I evaluate people that way, but I quote unquote know because I've heard people say it to me that they do evaluate people on that way. And I wonder if that is working against me of thinking that most people feel that way, or even if it's some people, that's enough for me to feel uncomfortable. And like I typically do things when I'm very confident in my success rate,
Okay.
other than
So
sports.
all of these people, are they in the room when you're going out pitching or speaking gigs?
No, I don't know who's on the other end of it.
Correct. But not just the people on the other end making the decision, but the people in general thinking about your credibility. None of them are in the room with you.
None of them are in the room with me in that experience. No.
Right.
Hmm.
Who is?
Me.
So when I ask you to turn around that statement of these people and I say, okay, try it on with I.
Hmm.
So I'm the one who needs credibility. I'm the one who needs more, you know, right and bigger metrics to
Hmm.
justify doing this.
Hmm.
Your initial thought is, well, no, I don't actually agree with that.
Hmm.
Yet all of your actions seem to correlate that a part of you does.
Hmm.
So what
And
comes up with?
do you think that's because I deep down believe that? Because what I think is that, like, strategically, and I'm a strategic type person, I like think about these types of things. I think more like in a strategic sense that it might not land with people or I might not sell. But for me, that wouldn't be the only criteria for someone to sell to me. Like if I
Right.
think about the things I've bought, that's not a requirement for me. But I guess I think that some people that is. And so, yeah, that's where I get tripped up.
Fair. So if logically all of this made sense and you could think your way through this, like we wouldn't be having this conversation,
Okay.
right? Like you would have gone through this and done the most strategic thing, which you've not only invested in, but you have experience with.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an basic conversation about like logic. This is about emotional logic. So when you talk about everything that's standing in your way in terms of people and you replace it with I, what I'm inviting you to consider is to actually tune into how your body feels about that. Does your body feel like that's true on some level?
For me or for the world.
Well, whatever you imagined about the world is very likely in this instance what you imagine about yourself.
No, I get confused because I know, like, okay, this is going to be strategy again, but like people, there's when you are learning about sales, right? There's different types of buyers. There's different things that are going to resonate with the different type of buyer. Some type of buyer needs certain type of things for them to feel comfortable buying. Some types of buyers need other things. And so, like, I guess that's where I get stuck thinking is there are different types of buyers. And am I only speaking to a certain type of buyer? And how do I know who I'm speaking to? And like, is the person in this industry, is it that type of buyer or how do they buy? And because I don't have enough reps of doing it, I don't have that like built-in confidence that comes from being successful at something.
Yeah. And I actually agree with you 110%. Right.
Okay.
And if you look at that discussion, so it's like we started this whole thing saying, okay, well, how many reps have you actually had? And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, I've had some and then I stopped and I never actually got a no, nor did I get a yes. So I'm in this
Mm-hmm.
limbo state of
Mm-hmm.
I need to do more of this and actually collect more real world data. And what your brain is trying to argue with is like, well, when I'm in front of this particular buyer and I'm like making my message this way, are they this type of buyer? Do they respond to this? Like, what is their buying criteria, et cetera? It's like there's this whole middle part, which is actually your block, which is I'm not doing the things that I know I can be doing to get to the point where this strategic conversation actually makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And given that you are so smart, and every time I have smart clients, I know that the one thing they always bypass is their emotions because they've solved so many other problems with their head.
Mm-hmm.
And given that your head right away jumps to this beautiful sounding correct answer,
Mm-hmm.
it just isn't correct at what is in front of you right now and what the block is right now. I know that there's something there. And I wouldn't say it's 100% clear yet, but there is something there. So
Mm-hmm.
what's landing for you, if anything, from that?
Well, thank you for calling me smart. What's landing for me is like the fear of failure and for the meaning I associate with the outcome of this and the potentially closed-mindedness I have around what success looks like in this pursuit.
Okay. So is having that, well, what does success look like in this pursuit?
Success looks like getting paid a certain amount of money in front of a certain type of audience this year.
Okay. Seems pretty clear to me.
Hmm.
Okay.
But, if like that's just where I think I'm going, but if I really play into the magic of life, and what I love so much about being human on life is that you might think you're going this way, but if you're open to it, it could be completely different than that. And that's just logically what I see. But it could be a totally different direction that could come from it. And I just don't know what's on the other end of it. I'm focused on this one use case and trying to find product market fit in this one space. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if we just made it even more minute than that. So like let's just say we end this call and now it's like, okay, well, whatever. I've had this conversation. Like I know that I just need to put in more reps. I'm gonna go and put in more reps. What's the feeling that comes up for you to do that?
Excited and scared. Yeah.
Okay.
Excited and scared.
And that's not the
Mm-hmm.
first time you felt that. Like you've
Mm-hmm.
built a successful business, so you've had plenty of different iterations of that.
Mm-hmm.
So why not just go through that fire and put in the reps to do that?
Because there's always an excuse. Yeah.
Agreed. And
There's
what's the
always an
feeling
excuse.
of the excuse?
Comfort, ease, like delaying something. So it's like, oh, well, now it's May and school's out, or oh, now you're going to Italy next week. So even if people did want to have a call with you, you couldn't have a call. And oh,
Right.
now it's Christmas
So
holidays.
avoidance, right, is how you
Yeah.
avoid the actual task.
Avoidance, totally. And it
Okay.
feels good to avoid it because it's like, oh,
100%.
let's just push that off a little bit longer.
Yep, 100%. I get that.
Hmm.
So dive into then the fear of the action, right? Because if it wasn't scary, you wouldn't avoid it. So what's the actual feeling of the action?
Of doing it or the outcome of the action.
So let's go with both. So doing it and then the feeling of the outcome.
I mean, doing it is so easy. Like I've literally wrote the email series. I have the list of emails. I have an email account. I have a website. I have a demo video. I have everything I need literally in every way.
Yeah.
Um, so the action is easy in terms of it's not like, well, where do I start? Which I had felt before, right? So I've
Yeah.
gotten myself here. I literally just have to do it. So then it's the outcome of, okay, so I get no replies. And then the list is empty, let's say.
Perfect.
And I've
So
contacted everyone.
if that happens,
Yeah.
then what? Like fill in the blank.
Then what? That's the question, But
Okay.
it failed.
Then you failed. Okay.
Or I need to pivot and all these things. But it's, I guess, like I won't give up that quickly, but it's nice to have momentum in your business. And I'm sure you can relate to this when you were starting yours. At the beginning of a business, there's just so much putting yourself out there and so much trial and error and see what sticks. And it's been really nice to not be in that energy for a long period of time and not having that wondering if it's going to work. Like it's just been getting better in my business because I've had the fit and yada, yada, yada. So I won't give up if I exhaust this list that I'm referring to.
Mm-hmm.
I'll think creative and I'll think myself through it, but it's emotionally and physically exhausting. Yeah.
100%. And I
Mm-hmm.
like I can see that no matter what, you're gonna eventually figure this thing out. This is about how can we shorten that
Thanks.
actual action. So who would you have to be to unapologetically and confidently do these actions?
Oh, I could just say something super political right now, but I'm not going to. Who would I have to be? Who would I have to be? Someone who's nicer to themselves. Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Someone who had more self-confidence and nice inner talk.
So tell me more about the inner thought.
Someone who's like, yeah, you got this. This is great. Lucky them that you're going to go share all this awesome knowledge. And don't you wish you had that? And
Beautiful. So that's the inner talk you want.
as the
What's
inner
the
talk
inner
I want.
talk that's actually present?
Well, there's the excuses of just like, well, let's wait. If you're going to do it, let's tee yourself up for maximum chance of success. And so let's wait till everything is perfect. Your messaging, the list, the timing,
Mhm.
which is probably avoidance and maybe a bit of strategy.
Sure. What else
So
does
there's that.
let's just say, is there an inner critic in there?
Yeah, inner critic for sure.
Okay. And what does the inner critic say?
You haven't wrote the best possible email. You haven't conveyed this perfectly. You could do better. Hmm.
So essentially variations of I'm not good enough.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. Got
Hmm.
it. So that sense of I'm not good enough is really always searching for some sort of protection, which is why it's getting you to dance around this type of thing. So how did you get through I'm not good enough to build your business up until this point?
Some things I cared less about. Some things were more like opportunistic, versus like so emotionally heavy. Like this business has, like you said, identity associated with it, emotions. It's like my life's work in a sense.
Got it. So
It's
the
very
business you have
different.
now was more about skill building and expertise at one thing that you have evidence for that you can point to that's in some ways at arm's length from your actual core. Whereas this
Hmm.
next business is actually all about you.
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay. And
totally.
if you got successful at speaking, you also have to threaten that now people will see and expose what this inner critic actually judges, which is I'm not actually good enough.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. So to what degree is this about strategy and implementation? And to what degree is it about visibility and the vulnerability of whatever wounding caused you to feel that I'm not good enough?
Mostly the inner wounding, because the inner wounding created the strategic questioning. Like every time I've told this idea to somebody and they've not gotten it or questioned it or have attempted to follow my advice and it failed for them, has called into question yeah, called into question my value.
Okay. So a lot of your value is dependent on the perception and the response of other people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
And
Which
where
isn't new,
else?
like wanting to be liked and accepted. I mean, that's something that's always followed me.
Okay, perfect. I was going to say is where else is this showing up in your life?
Hmm.
Okay.
Everywhere.
So in that instance, this goal of speaking, do you think it has a strategic resolution or does it actually require inner resolution?
I think at this point it requires inner resolution. I think I've delayed it long enough with the strategy. I've put in enough money and coaching and expertise to the point that it's not like I'm learning new things regularly now. I'm just
Good.
hearing the same message. Hmm.
I would agree with you. So I'm glad that that's landing. So if we go
Hmm.
back to a previous question, then
Hmm.
who or what would you be if you were good enough?
Who would I be?
Yeah. So who or what would you be if you lost the ability to think I'm not good enough?
I'd probably be someone doing the thing.
Okay. So who
Hmm.
would you be?
I would be a motivational speaker, sharing my journey and positively impacting the lives of people who aspire to have a similar type of lifestyle to me or connect with a desire for freedom, but not necessarily know how to create it for themselves in a society that brings you down a different path.
So that's what you would create
Hmm.
if you stopped having the ability to think I'm not good enough. But who
Yeah.
would you be? Who's behind? Like if you like a wave a magic wand and you just lost the ability to think, I'm not good enough. Like
Hmm.
who's Sam then?
I'm confident. Hopefully, I'm not too arrogant. I guess maybe that's something that comes up too, is like humbleness is probably important to me.
Right. And at this point, it kind of sounds like that's been distorted into let me play small and downplay my stuff, call it humbleness so that I don't ever threaten that it's actually arrogance.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
fair that's another part of the pattern, but let's go deeper into the opposite. Who or what would you be without the belief that you're not good enough?
Who or what would I be? I'd be confident. I'd be nice to myself. I'd be courageous and doing what I want to be doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's define confidence a bit more because that means different things to different people. So what does confidence mean to you?
Confidence means what you just said of just like not having the inner talk, not having like an inner critic that's unhealthy. Like I don't want to just send out, I'm not like a one take person. Like I will always review my emails and take a couple takes on my podcast recordings or things like that. Like I'm always going to strive for high quality. I think that's ingrained in who I am. But there's too much of that right now and it's
So it's kind of
preventing
morphed
me.
into perfectionism. Okay. So would it
Hmm.
say that for you, confidence actually translates into some type of authenticity, some type of unfiltered expression?
Yeah. 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 Being okay with being imperfect and being okay with not everybody liking me or not everybody thinking I'm perfect.
Okay.
Hmm.
So turn that one around, right? Everybody not thinking, or everybody being okay, or whatever you said, everybody thinking I'm okay to
I'm
not be
okay with not
perfect.
everybody thinking I'm perfect or not everybody, you
Correct.
know what I mean? Like I spend a lot of time trying to be perfect.
Correct. And the reason that I keep pointing these out is your brain is very trigger happy to define all of these identity statements from the perspective of the other,
Hmm.
right? Like if I was okay to show up as I am and not care what others thought of me,
Hmm.
then I would just show up.
Hmm.
But it's like your brain always defaults to the people pleasing aspect of it. People
Hmm.
would be okay with who I am, and I would be okay with that. It always
Hmm.
puts them first, right? So
Hmm.
going back to this authenticity piece. So anything that lands for you there,
I mean, how do I stop caring what people think?
you start
What?
accepting your own unapologetic authenticity and you own that and you eliminate the impact of the woundings that have said, okay, well, in order for me to be okay, in order for me to be safe, in order for me to operate in the world, I have to accommodate to other people and ensure that they're okay.
Hmm.
So what lands for you there?
All of it, I guess, wondering how do you start to change that? Because I mean, there's applications in all aspects of my life, right? So it's like, how do you start doing that?
Well, I mean, short answer is I can work through this with you in the Up Level Mind program because this comes up way more than
Perfect.
people like to admit. Uh, More elaborate answer is the like you have learned patterns over time that at some point have been needed for your quote unquote survival, or at least the perception of your survival as generally a child. And while these patterns have served you, so generally when people have this heightened perception of what people think of them, the reason they got ahead in life is they became really good at being attuned to like what is it that people need, what's my relation to them, what is my perception of how they perceive me, so that I can mold myself and in some ways control their reaction, because if that can happen then I can be safe, right? And
Mhm.
those parts of you never had the time, space, or facilitation to actually grow out of those patterns. On top of that, we just piled a whole bunch of beliefs and skill sets and adulting things that now begin to show up in our business. So I'm not surprised that this didn't show up in as big of an aspect in your business now, because so much of it is about the skill sets. I can control what people think of me when I dot all the I's and cross all the T's, but being technically perfect is something that I can point to that doesn't have to do anything with me, but it's like, look, here's the evidence, here's the metrics, here's the strategy, it works. Do the same thing, it's going to work. But now, when you're evolving past that and you want to get into a more authentic expression and evolve as a business owner and all the spaces you want to get into, now this is all about you. Now you can't control on these things. The evidence you point to is actually yourself. You can't optimize for the people pleasing aspects of it. So this part of you is now freaked out because it's operating at, for sake of example, like the 7-year-old self. It might not even be conscious. It might be a nervous system thing. It might be an unconscious thing. But that's essentially the dynamics of what's going on here. So I don't want to dive too much into this, but just let me know like what's landing of this, what isn't landing of this. You let me know.
No, it's all landing. And it's not the first time I've heard it. When I was getting coaching on like the personal side of my life and getting therapy around relationships. So it's both annoying, but also correct that it's now showing up in my business life, but it's mostly annoying.
Yeah.
And yeah, more work to
Welcome to
do.
being human. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I understand the sentiment, and it also doesn't really care if we're annoyed or not.
Yeah.
So I get the annoyance in that as well. So anyway, I know you have like a hard stop, so I want to make sure to be conscious of that. Does this feel complete for you as far as like mapping this out, or is there still something left outstanding?
Well, I think identification of the problem is helpful. I think there's clearly work I need to do. So I'll definitely look into the up level mind program that you mentioned and sit with this a little bit and try to figure out some actions I can take. I can at least commit to sending the emails. I'll do that.
All right. Well, if you want to do an update episode and being like, yeah, I sent out X amount, I got Y result.
I
I'm okay
failed.
with
It's
that
your
as well.
fault.
Fair enough. Well, Sam, listen, thank you very much for allowing yourself to be witnessed in this way. I know it's definitely not an easy thing in general, but especially if your patterns are to do with my perception of other people and to show up in a vulnerable way, it's not a small thing. So I just want to acknowledge you for it. So yeah, thank you for that. And then floor is yours to let everybody know where to find you, who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
Thank you so much. You can visit whatsyourfree.com. You can learn a bit more about my podcast and my story and some of my videos there if you're interested in pursuing a freedom-based lifestyle.
Awesome. Well, as always, we'll include that in the show notes.
Awesome.
Sam, thank you very much for being on. And for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.